however much people might grandstand and proselytise about the benefits of a ceasefire and civilians being killed in, well, multiple numbers over in Gaza, that both sides don't want it.
Well, obviously, both sides want different things. Israel wants an end to Hamas. Hamas, wants an end to Israel. Let's face it. But you have, the central bargaining chip is obviously the hostages. That will obviously form a part of any ceasefire negotiation. Clearly, everyone wants a ceasefire. The question is how we get there. And as I think Kevin said, this is a bit of in some ways, it's a debating society topic, because whatever the Labour Party says will not have any impact on the ground. But on the other hand, it could hardly be more important, because it's a matter of such principle. And MPs report that they receive more letters from their constituencies and emails than on any other topic in this parliament almost. And so it really matters to a lot of people, even people who are not personally impacted by events in either Israel or Gaza. So it's a real question of principle, of what we think should happen, about how much we value people's lives. This is important. And so Starmer, to my mind, has been politically very foolish, because he tried to show strength by increasing and by imposing this new strand of discipline on his party over this issue. Whereas in the first few weeks of the conflict, he allowed frontbenchers to come out quite strongly and say they supported a ceasefire without any kind of pushback from the Labour leadership. But now anyone who wants to make that case, and in particular vote for it, has to resign, effectively be sacked, as we saw last night. He didn't have to do that, because now he's turned it into a conversation about his leadership. He's turned it into a conversation about Labour divisions, taking away headlines from the Tory catastrophe over Rwanda. And importantly, it's stupid in the long run, because he will have to argue for the position he's currently fired people for, because there will come a time in the next few days or weeks when Joe Biden himself will demand a ceasefire when the numbers of casualties simply gets too great, and then Starmer will have to argue for that position himself.
Also, Jonathan, it seems to me, if Starmer is the Prime Minister in the making and his shadow cabinet was coming along for the ride, obviously, you don't pick a shadow cabinet lightly. These are the people that he thinks are the most talented to be a government. He's just lost 10 of them. I mean, that's catastrophic, isn't it?
I think that could be overstated. He hasn't lost any shadow cabinet ministers. They've all been in more junior positions. And also, people can leave the front bench and then come back into it quietly a few months later.
He's lost 10 shadow cabinet ministers.
So no, they're not shadow cabinet. They're junior ministerial positions. He hasn't lost the shadow, chancellor, the shadow, international development secretary. These are junior positions he's lost. And I'm sure that, even the Labour Party, even though the Labour Party is decimated at the last election, there are still enough MPs to fill those positions. And as I said, I would not be at all surprised if many of those, if not most of those people are back in the shadow front bench within a few months, having made their point, as is entirely their right to do so.
I mean, you say that you think Sir Keir Starmer is being pretty politically sanguine here. I would want to put to you the opposite, that the UK has received significant intelligence about quite who might be connected to some of these protesters, and how this conflict in the Middle East is increasingly an information war, frankly, across the world. Surely, by Starmer giving in to rabble-rousers on the street, some of whom may have unsavoury contacts, he's essentially allowing people to dictate Western geopolitical strategy by creating havoc on our streets. I don't think that'd be sanguine at all.
He said anything about listening to rabble-rousers, Alex. This is about, this is not a niche, stop the war, left-wing fringe opinion that there should be a ceasefire. It's a position that's been adopted by that left-wing hero, Emmanuel Macron, who's no stranger to some conflict in faraway lands. And so this is a position that people have reached in good faith, just as people have reached a position on the other side, I assume, in good faith in the vast majority of cases. Everyone wants to see peace. Everyone wants to see a negotiated settlement in the long run, because this is unsustainable. It's simply a question of how we get there, and at what point we say this many Palestinian people killed is too many. 5,000, 4,500 Palestinian children is not a price that we are prepared to pay. The question is, at what point does the international community coalesce and make that argument?